All right, what is up, everybody? NittanyLionRoar, Mr. Spock here. So we are going to do the Watchtower episode 2 today. All right, Mr. Spock, lead the way. All right, Mr. Spock, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry
Okay,
about
there we go. There we go.
that. It's been a morning of difficulties.
Yes, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty, so there we go. But we're all good now. All right, so go ahead and lead the way.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. This was meant to be on my channel. We were having some issues with that, so here we are instead. I want to give everyone just a couple minutes to migrate over since this was not the intended location for us. But how you doing today, man? Glad to be back.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. So, totally non-empires and puzzles related, but I got my first dose of the vaccine, so I'm half
Oh wow,
immune. So I'm like,
nice,
I'm an essential worker, so I got to be towards the front of the line. So I'm excited about that.
nice.
But
Yeah,
and it wasn't too bad. Yeah, I didn't feel it at all. So and I'm not usually very good with shots. So
yeah. Well, congratulations.
yeah.
All right, how's everyone doing out there today? Always a delayed response. Anybody
Mhm.
there?
Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of the chat here, so I'll read it off as we're going. A lot of people are commenting on your glasses, saying you look very handsome and spiffy with those nice glasses. Um, and yeah, they can see what's in front of you, which is
Okay.
which is just your computer.
Didn't think about that part of it. A little bit of a messy desk, but it's been it's been sort of a hectic week.
Yeah, so the technical issue we were having, just in case you're curious, was my audio for some reason wasn't going through to Mr. Spock's channel. So we just moved over here because we know it worked from last time. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Since you don't know sign language, we wanted to make sure everyone could hear you.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do two on Mr. Spock's channel then in a row once we get that figured out.
So I'm hearing that I'm a little bit quieter than you, which is something I was hearing last time.
Yeah, let me try something, see if I can fix
Okay.
that. All right, go ahead and say something, see if that fixed it.
Testing. How's that sound, everybody? Any better?
Based on what I'm seeing in the audio bar, it should be. Um, and we have a delayed response here, so
Mm.
people will
Oh yeah,
text
it's a
in
little
just a
bit
moment.
behind.
But, yep.
All right. Yeah,
But yeah,
when you've been streaming, do you have any lag issues when you stream your warheads? People complaining about laggy stream?
um, not typically. As far as like, so sometimes with the sound, when I put the sound, when the sound comes through, and it's not with the stream, it is with the game itself. Like, I've noticed with the Empires and Puzzles games, sometimes the audio trails the, I don't know why, but sometimes trails what's happening on the screen. And
Interesting.
yeah, it's not a stream thing, but that's the only thing I hear sometimes. There is definitely a delay, and I think that delay is there. So if any trolls come in the chat and are trolling, we have a chance to to stop that. But
Yeah.
I had someone recently say they used a derogatory term in the chat,
Mm,
and even with the delay, it was a little hard to catch it on time. But
hmm. Well, I think probably got enough people now to get started, so let's go ahead and do that. Um, so yeah, this would have been on my channel, so we can just make believe, and we had the idea of switching back and forth between who's kind of leading the discussion. So it'll mostly be a free flowing conversation between the two of us, but we'll just change the structure of it slightly. So yeah, for anyone that didn't know, I just wanted to add that when I was starting out playing, you were the videos that I was watching. I've always enjoyed watching things demonstrated as opposed to reading about them. So when looking for answers, went to YouTube and I remember seeing your 15 tips videos and various other videos. And so just some fun history there of, you've been playing this game for how long now?
oh gosh, yeah, I just hit 3 years on Christmas Day.
Oh
So
wow.
it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah. So I
And
think I'm just about halfway there, about 18 months, I think.
yeah. And you're now the one that I watch for like technical advice and things because I'll not pretend that I'm like some master of this game. I just know that my skill set helps me explain things to people. And when I
Yeah.
started my channel, it really wasn't even for the public. It was for my alliance because I had been helping some players play better, and it was really difficult to like explain things in the chat, like what you're supposed to do, or like on Discord, just
Hmm.
by like showing screenshots or texting about it. And I had been made a co-leader. I was giving really helpful advice about wars, so I was like, you know what, like it's going to be so much easier if I just show people what I'm doing, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend I'm like the master of all empires and puzzle strategy. But I had learned a lot of good strategy tips from other co-leaders and things, and I just wanted I knew I would be good at explaining it to my alliance mates, so I made the videos to show other people how to do some certain things, like how to build teams and
Hmm.
manipulate tiles and stuff like that. And just like little various things too, like the my life hacks video was one of the first videos that I made, and it was just even things like you have multiple teams you can build and slide across, so like set your defense way on the end so that you don't keep changing your defense when you attack a titan, and just like little things like that. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there would be so many people that would watch that. So like, although it was intended for my alliance, a lot of people started watching, and I'm thankful because that's a lot of you guys who are on the chat right now. Have probably been watching those for a couple of years or picked up on it, or when you were new players saw those videos. So I was glad I could help. I didn't even intend for it, but here we are today. So so it's
Yeah.
good.
And I think you got about a 500,000 views on that video, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is. It
I
drives.
think it's been
It's
up for 2 or 3 years, but that's a lot of views.
Yeah. So I'm really thankful. And I'll tell you what, that video is kind of outdated by now. So like I've thought about making like an updated life hacks video.
Yeah.
Just, for some new stuff because the game has changed a lot since I started posting those things.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, it's so deep and complex now. I'm looking to YouTubers like you to explain some of the new stuff that's happening. Like I'd like to think that I'm a good beta playtester, but I just don't have the time for it. So like a lot of the
Yeah.
upcoming stuff, I can't track all that like you can or like some other people do. So I definitely look to the stuff that you guys are doing for some of the newer mechanics and
Sure.
ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I really enjoy about the content platform here on YouTube is that everyone is kind of doing a slightly different thing. And so while there's some overlap, it does feel like they're all just different points of view. And that's something that's really nice.
Hmm.
Um, that it's not, it could never be like total competition because like each person just has their own perspective and there's value across the board there, which is nice. Um, so yeah, that's pretty cool.
What inspired you to start making videos?
That's one thing I was thinking about. Yeah. So I would probably have to go back and trace back to what it was, but like my very first video, I think my first my first video on the channel entirely is I got a lucky 10 pull and pulled Finley on the first pull of 10. And I was like, oh, that was too cool not to share. But I'd recorded it, so I must have had some sort of plan that I would post that anyways. I think I had seen that there were lots of pull videos. And then the other thing that I was recording early on was trying to complete the legendary challenge events with like 4 stars at 360 and stuff like that. So trying to struggle to complete those things, and I thought that there was some value in demonstrating that to other people that might be struggling. So I started there, and I can't really track where the how that progressed from there, but then it turned into what it is now, and it's I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's fun to um, contribute to the community, and then when you get those comments of people that are so appreciative of you helping to explain things, that it's a rewarding process.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the first topic that we're going to talk about today, now that we've given a little bit of our background, was we wanted to go over, not really go over, but I guess discuss the new Mythic Titans. So this was a feature that had dropped into beta a while ago. I never covered it in my beta breakdown videos because there was just so much going on, and I was like, kind of like what you're saying, where I was like, okay, I can't dive into this other new feature because there were so many other things happening. So I never covered that. I wasn't very excited about it. When when did you hear about it? Was it just when it went live in game, or alliance mates were talking about it beforehand?
Alliance mates were talking about it beforehand, and prepping for it and things like that. Nobody really knew exactly what to expect, though. I mean, some people had some knowledge about what it would probably be like, but um, it wasn't really until we started diving in, and I took a risk, like just doing my hits, because I was like, I don't really know what to expect with the how best to attack these Mythic Titans,
Yeah.
as but I figured I'd put it up, and that's why I say I'm like, I don't pretend like I am some all-knowing master of the game. I like to show people what my thought process is as I play, including my mistakes and things like that, because it's good discussion. So
Hmm.
I just dove in and did a Mythic Titan hit, kind of analyzed that, talked with my alliance mates about it. We had some alliance mates who were getting hits over 1 million on the
Wow.
Mythic Titan, and so they were saying what they were doing. It was really helpful. So each time I hit the Titan, even though the first attack is the strongest one,
Hmm.
it was my following hits that actually were the biggest hits, because we were getting the battle items right, and
Hmm.
which and how often to use certain heroes. Like I struggled a little bit with how long should I use Mickey, because
Yeah.
he's absolutely the best hero against the Mythic Titan, that particular one. But like
Yeah.
he's also already slow, and then to keep taking the mana hit, I was like, man, do I keep him in? Do I not? Like I
Hmm.
switched to Ranveer at some point, and I was like, I don't know if I liked that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. There's still things I'm figuring out about it.
Yeah. Some interesting things that I saw that I wasn't expecting. I never really learned much about the event ahead of time because I felt like they were throwing so many features at us that I was like, I honestly, this is one I'm comfortable just letting it go. There's too much going on. I don't know that I really care about it. Um, and it was interesting watching as it happened. So before it launched, I did see that on the forum somewhere, someone had shown what the loot was going to be. And once I saw they had included 4-star ascension items, I was like, okay, I feel like I have to try now. It's sort of like the tournaments where the chances of getting stuff is decent enough that it's worth playing. And so I actually didn't mind it as much as I thought I would have, but it was interesting to see that people were totally changing the color Titan teams that they were using, which you never see, where people were using their purple Titan teams, yellow Titan teams, just because they had that attack boost to them. And I actually got some pretty solid hits using a yellow team against a red Titan, which was sort of interesting. So I think it's one of those things where it's new and the strategy is going to unfold a lot, kind of like the Ninja Tower, where the scores keep going up every time and they're going to continue to do so as people get more of a handle and can experiment with it more. Um, did you end up changing the teams that you were using, or did you try to stick with blue and just swap in new heroes?
Luckily, blue is my strongest color as far as roster depth, so I was
Hmm.
able to keep swapping in blue, but I did have to change my teams. I thought at first I'd be able to go pretty deep without having to change things up, but the mana hit is a real hit. So
Hmm.
I definitely was switching things up. But I made it the whole way pretty much with blue heroes. I don't know if I'll be able to do
Hmm.
that with every Mythic Titan, but for this one I could.
Yeah, yeah. Which Titans do you struggle the most against?
Probably green. All of
Yeah, I
my
hate green.
yeah, all of my and that's why Teleria was such a great like war tank for so long, and raid tank, because not only was she super strong, but uh red doesn't have a lot of, and you think it would, because red is like an aggressive color. You think of it as being like fast and hard hitting, but a lot of the
Hmm.
heroes out there that are red are not actually that aggressive. They're like average speed or slow, or like,
Yeah,
and they're coming out with more faster ones. Like Gefyan is one that
yeah,
feels more like what a red hero should be to me.
yeah,
But like all of my red 5-star heroes are like Anzo, Guardian Kong, Wilbur. Like that's not a 5-star hero, but like one that I use,
yeah.
Wilbur. You know, so it's a lot of these like slower area of effect heroes that
Yeah,
just aren't great against Titans.
yeah. And even Marjana as the classic original sniper is the weakest of the five colors, I think.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, they do seem to be changing that because it's hard to say where they'll land now, but the season four and villain heroes that are in beta do have some pretty strong red heroes. And I was looking through them the other day, being like, do I care about any of these? And the ones that seemed the most appealing were the reds. So I think that is something that they are working on. Wow, Anchor coming through with
Yeah,
the big donation.
look at that. Anchor says,
You
"Look at
just
both of you, sexy animals."
wow, you're just trying to flex that big 20K subscriber money on us.
Yeah, thank you, Anchor. That's awesome.
Yeah, cheers, man. Um, Yeah. So, are you interested in talking about your Mythic Titans strategy that you guys ended up with, or you want to keep that close to the chest while you go into the next one?
I'll talk about it briefly.
Sure.
Because I think it's going to be relatively common for people to talk
Hmm.
about the main strategy, and I don't think it's a secret. But I think some of the finer details people might want to keep close to the vest. But like
Hmm.
the main thing, and I was thinking about doing a video for this anyway, before the next Mythic Titan comes out. Things that I learned from the first Titan, and the main thing is that board manipulation is absolutely essential against the Mythic Titans since it's longer. You have more time to hit this Titan. Originally, I was going to go in and just try to keep the Titan from firing with things like I know the time stop didn't stop the Titan from hitting,
Yeah.
but it should, I believe, if I'm correct, and I could be wrong because I wasn't really thinking on the first hit, but I was gonna try to just like keep the special from firing. But I realized like I didn't even need to do that because there's enough board manipulation at this point that you can keep the Titan from firing even once just with like tornadoes and hurricanes and um
Yeah.
like the altar scroll. Like you can just constantly stun the Titan.
Yeah. Yeah. They have those weird, like, little eye parts that will block the stun. But yeah, if you watch the big hits, some people posted their big hits, and like the million hits are just like using pretty much the max amount of every heavy item that is available.
Yeah.
Um, Do you have your hunter's lodge built out to craft those things, or you just kind of ended up with them over
Yeah,
time?
I had been saying for a long time that I hadn't really built up my hunter's lodge. Like I had it there
Yeah,
for harpoons, but
same.
I didn't see a reason to spend resources on those battle items until now. And a lot of the Hunter's Lodge battle items are extremely relevant for the Mythic Titan now. So I am
Yeah.
I am working on researching the hurricanes and scroll of alteration now and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I also am now. I mean, basically, you get to end game and you have like nothing to do with iron, but now put it into the rare troop level of the Hero Academy. Um, but I'm also now trying to finish my Hunter's Lodge after seeing that, and after doing the Ninja Tower too. I feel like the Ninja Tower is one of the more approachable events because you can't infinitely replay.
Hmm.
Like that's the part about the challenge events that's kind of off-putting to me is like I know that I'm not going to be the most intense person about doing this. So is it worth the time investment to not even place that well? Because some people are going to spend the whole weekend on it, you know?
Right. And
And for me,
actually,
it's not. Yeah.
yeah, and actually that's I like the Mythic Titan event for
Hmm.
the reason that it wasn't as time consuming as a lot of other events. Like, and
Yeah.
you don't have to, I mean, you can't, just like the Ninja Tower, like the Ninja Tower takes a long time. The Mythic Titans didn't take as long, but it has that same kind of feel where you get a certain number of hits like that, you know, and that's it. So,
Hmm.
you're done after those hits.
Hmm.
So I kind of liked it. I didn't feel like it sucked up a lot of time. It was a lot of fun, kind of novel. It'll be interesting to see what future Mythic Titans are. So I'm a
Yeah.
fan of the Mythic Titan event. I think that's something
Yeah.
Empires and Puzzles needed to do. But on that note too, because we had talked in episode 1 about like just how many events there are and you can't possibly do everything at this point. And I'm starting to become okay with that. Like, you know
Hmm.
what, Empires and Puzzles, offer all the events you want to and just let us pick the ones we think are fun. That's a good situation for everyone, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody is going to be that intense to try and do absolutely everything, okay, if you have that time on your hands, go for it. But
Hmm.
like, I kind of like that since I've been thinking about it, I used to be in the mindset of I have to do everything or I'm going to get behind. But I kind of
Hmm.
like that we're getting to the point now where it's like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to choose to do the ones I find fun, and the things that feel like work, why do I have to do that? I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of still split in that sense because like the challenge event this weekend, I've done like maybe half of rare, maybe half of legendary, and I'm like, all right, there's only a day and a half left. I really want those emblems, but I'm like, oh, what a grind, you know?
Hmm.
So I tend to try to do like okay just to get like raid flasks and stuff like that that I do enjoy using, you know, things that make the game sort of more fun, or I can use it to test out heroes and stuff. But it is starting to hit that point for me too, where I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to finish this. And I was kind of lamenting on how when I first started making videos, the challenge events were really exciting because I'm like, I don't know if I can finish, you know, and you're like on the edge of your seat, just seeing if you can get through it. And once you can easily get through it, you lose a lot of the fun because now it's like, okay, do I want to just farm these things endlessly? Um, and I don't. So
Yeah.
that's where I've landed with that. Yeah. But yeah, the Mythic Titan, I feel like, did you hear about the sort of loot fiasco that happened?
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I know. What do you think about that? How they handled it?
Yeah. Um, I
Or
mean,
you can say no comment if you prefer also.
to be quite honest, I, I don't have much of a feeling about how they handled it.
Hmm.
It just kind of, well, it felt to me like, well, there's been some like bugs and things in the past that have happened, and I just kind of expect that that's going to happen. Like sometimes Small Giant doesn't catch some of these things when they put the game out. Like I'm not sure if it gets tested. Like, is there some switch they have to? I have no idea.
Hmm.
But like it feels like this happens from time to time, and so I'm sort of at the point where I'm like, well, that's not a surprise, and I didn't even
Yeah.
care that much. Like I just didn't worry about it. But I know some people got heated and ticked off about it, maybe deservedly so. But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just I didn't put a lot of thought or emotional energy into it.
Yeah. That's probably the that's probably the best course of action, especially since we have very little control over what they're going to do anyways, you know.
Hmm. I
They
am
seem
a
to be. Oh, go ahead.
I do have to say, I am a big believer in if they make a mistake that they should uh, offer some kind of reward for, you know, like, sorry guys, we screwed up. And that was
Yeah.
something that I pushed for before, and they've
Hmm.
been pretty good about that lately. But
Yeah.
um,
The classic single world energy flask. Here you
yeah,
go, guys. Knock yourself out.
I
Yeah.
do have like over 100 of those now. So yeah, that's not
Oh wow.
a particularly meaningful reward.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
actually, I still farm Atlantis pretty intensely during Atlantis Rises, where I'll just have the auto farming going most of the time. I don't buy loot tickets, so I'll just use what I accumulate, and then I'll just auto farm the rest of the time while I'm doing other things. Pretty good at multitasking, so I can just tap the button and keep doing what I'm doing. So I pretty much use up all my flasks throughout that period, and then just scrape together as many as I can in between. So that's one area where I'm still investing a decent amount of time. So it
yeah.
always surprises me when I hear people that have 100 or more flasks. They're like, "Oh, I have 3,000 loot tickets. What should I do with these?" I'm like, "Wow,
That's what surprises me about having over 100 world energy flasks right now too is I farm Atlantis the same way. Like as soon as Atlantis
oh,
starts, it's constant. Every waking minute that thing is running. And
huh,
so I'm like, and when this past Atlantis finished, I'm like, how do I still have all these world energy flasks? Like where are they coming from?
yeah, interesting. That is strange because I end up with maybe like, depending on my luck, maybe 25 to 35 or something like that in between events. Um, but yeah, that's pretty impressive. You got a stockpile there, so you're safe for your Atlantis farming.
I think I keep getting
Um,
them in like those event rewards. It's
mm,
very, to your point, it's like a very common thing for them to give us.
yeah.
And so I think I just keep accumulating them through event rewards.
Hmm. Trying to think if there's anything else. Maybe let's try something different here. Does anyone have any Mythic Titan questions before we cover a different topic? I do want to make sure we're taking into account all of our lovely viewers here. So if you guys have any questions, I think this would be a good time for those. And then we can move on topics and sprinkle some of these questions in throughout.
Yeah, while we
Um,
wait for Mythic Titan questions,
yeah.
because there's the delay, so it'll take a little bit to come in.
Mhm.
Someone did ask you, what is your strategy to maximize Atlantis coins, Mr. Spock?
Yeah, so the only thing that I know about that, and this is where like you hear things, I tend to believe, probably like yourself, that you shouldn't just believe what you hear, you should verify it if you want to assume it to be true. Um, so one thing that I can say with almost certainty is that the more enemies in the map stage, the more chances of a sea dragon spawning. Because the way they presented it to us is that there's just each enemy spawn has a certain percentage chance to spawn one of those sea dragons. The other thing that I've heard that I've not verified is that the harder levels have an even greater chance of one of those enemies spawning a sea dragon. So um, I don't know about you, but I farm 1-9 on normal the whole time, and it's easy to auto farm, and it has a lot of backpacks, which is what I've been going for. I might change my strategy eventually because I'm needing feeders sort of less and less. I just level heroes one at a time now instead of 5 to 10, which is what I used to be doing. Um, so yeah, I probably get with the flasks that I use like 400 plus coins. And when they had that Sea Dragon issue and they sent us coins in the mail, I got about 440 or something like that. So to me, that's pretty good. I wouldn't really expect to get that many more, but I guess if anyone has a better place, I'd be inclined to believe it's just that cut and dry. But feel free to share that in the comments for other people's benefit. But yeah, I'm just going for the backpacks now, and I think each wave can have up to 5 enemies. So that's I forget how many waves are in that level, but plenty of chances for sea dragons to spawn.
Yeah, my strategy for Atlantis has been more on the resource side. Like,
Hmm.
I tend to want um, resources for battle items and things like that, just for the Titans. And
Yeah,
occasionally, when I do an event, like we have an event going on right now, the Pirates event, and once in
yeah,
a while, I like to compete in that because the rewards are good if you can get in the top tier, but
yeah.
it takes a lot of farming for that. So I typically do 9-10 because that's like the last place you can do it for 3 world energy. And just looking at the spreadsheets and things that are out there about
Hmm.
how many resources you get, that's kind of been my strategy with that. So we do have
So you're
some questions about Mythic Titans coming up here, but yes, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you're more not so concerned with the backpacks at this point, more interested in, and I think that's where it just as you move into more end game, which I'd say you're in the end game phase as
Hmm.
someone who's been playing for years, it's just distinctly different. And you're like, I've got plenty of heroes, I guess, plenty of backpacks, and now you're like, what I need is items to craft
Oh yeah,
to compete in events or whatever.
you ready for this? I have 9,657 backpacks.
You know how many I have?
How many?
Zero. Every single backpack I have goes into my. I have two TC2s running. One of them is just going at all times, and the other one I can typically get to like maybe 18 days, and then I just deplete them. So, but yeah, at this point, I have like feeders stacked up in there for sort of the first time ever. Just waiting for one telescope for Scotty, and then I'm gonna try to finish her in the same day.
Yeah, I think most mid game players should be following your lead on that because that's what I would definitely be doing if I had a lot of heroes I needed to or wanted to level up.
Yeah.
I've kind of reached a point, uh, even right now, like I still feel like I need, like I don't have a lot of the top tier heroes, which is,
Hmm.
I feel like causing me to struggle a little bit, especially on defense. I have some good offensive heroes, but on defense,
Hmm.
I don't have some of the top tier heroes in the game right now.
Hmm.
So I wish I could power up a little bit, but all the 5-star heroes I have on my roster at this point are no better than the ones I already have leveled. So I'm just really waiting for special heroes to come along to level up. So
Yeah.
even like right now, I'm actually just working on very fast tournament and war heroes. I had no heroes that really worked well for that, but I just leveled up Krampus, which I can use on regular or on the very fast wars actually,
Yeah, he's
but
solid.
also Guardian Owl has been sitting in my roster for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I have tons of emblems for druids because I don't really have 5-star druids.
Mm,
And he's just sitting there, so I'm leveling him up currently, and then I'm gonna level up Mother North, which I just got. Don't know if you saw that video, but I did one last minute Christmas
I
pool
did,
with
yeah.
like 2 hours left, and got Krampus and Mother North in that one temple. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
It was so cool. All right, so let's
And
check
now,
out some of these Mythic Titan questions because they're popping up
yeah, sounds
here.
good.
Um, so let's see. Someone asked if we know what the next color is. I don't personally know what the next color is, but do you?
No, I don't. I don't know if that information's even out there, but I definitely haven't tried to seek it out. For me, it kind of doesn't really matter. I'll have the heroes that I'm gonna have anyways. And that's again where like in the same way there's so many events, it's hard to keep up with it. There's so much information coming out. Often, I guess there's pockets of more or less, but I kind of have to selectively keep up with that kind of stuff. So that's why I did the beta breakdown because I'm like, well, if I'm interested, lots of other people probably are, but sometimes there's just too much.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, because I'm interested what you think about this. I'm
Mm,
interested to know if we have a similar opinion or
okay.
different. Big Birdie asks, any value to repost with Mythic Titans?
Um, I mean, I guess you probably can't say no, there's no value. It depends on what your strategy is. I'm trying to think of, and like these are the questions I get a lot on my videos where people are like, who should I level next? Or like, what's the best red hero? Or things like that, where there just really isn't a simple answer. So, like, if you were using 4-star blue teams for the Titan because that's the best you had, well, then Boral could help increase your Titan damage, because you don't have the perfect Titan heroes. If you have like the perfect Titan team of like Frida, Athena, Mickey, and then two really high, maybe Yacht or Jot, whatever you want to call them, and one other high damage blue. Like you probably don't want to pull Repost in just for the sake of pulling Repost in. You probably have the winning strategy already. So it really depends on where you're at in the game. I think is the best broadest answer I can give. What do you think?
I think that's an excellent answer. Almost exactly what I would have said.
Hmm.
And I think I think Repost as a mechanic is not necessarily my favorite mechanic because it requires damage to be done to your own heroes to deal damage to the other hero. So
Yeah.
like your own, what that's saying is my heroes have to be dying for the Titan to take damage, which is not typically my favorite thing. And I didn't like Repost early on in the game because of that. I have to say though, in the past year or year and a half, they've been making new Repost heroes a little better. One
Hmm.
example of this is Ursina, who prevents the damage too.
Yeah.
So, but for a specific color. And I think that's where Riposte is really strong. So, like, if you
Yeah.
were to go against a yellow Titan, taking a hero like Ursina would be really good.
Hmm.
And then some of the other new Riposte heroes also have other things that they're doing along with the Riposte, which is where I think Riposte will really shine. When the heroes are doing other things and Riposte, that's pretty
Yeah.
good. Riposte on its own, unless you are at the point of the game like Spock was saying, where um, the tile damage matters more. Like you bring Boral because you need the boosted tile damage from blue against red. That's probably more beneficial than the riposte itself, but the riposte will be a little bonus there then too.
Hmm. There he is. Cheers, Malix.
Wow, Malix. All right, so Malix says, pair character looking at himself in the mirror saying, "Thanks for." Okay, that's that's a description of the. I didn't know that it would do a description of what was in the sticker, but Malix says, "Thanks for being you," with hearts popping out of his eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Malix. That's awesome. Really cool of you.
um, yeah, yeah. So that's the hardest answer to give because I feel like people want those simple answers where you're like, yes, riposte is good and you should use it. And they're like, cool, easy, you know?
Hmm.
But none of this stuff ever really breaks down that simply, unfortunately. So like when people ask me those kind of questions, I try to like portray what that answer is and why it's true and how you really have to decide for yourself. But one thing I wanted to mention is that I think it's I can't remember if it's season 4 or the villain heroes, both of which I was looking at the other day. But there is a Repost hero in there that I think he's a red, does damage to 3 at average speed, pretty good damage. And then they get counterattack, and each time they counterattack, they gain a little bit of mana. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Um, so that's a Repost hero that I think that will fit that pool nicely. So clearly, it's a mechanic that they see value in and is not going away. So it's nice to see them find clever uses for it as they move the game forward, because I think it does have good potential to be like, all right, let's share this damage. You want to hit me? Well, you're going to get hit back,
Yeah.
um, which is kind of cool. Or the ninjas, for example, that have that chance to counterattack as their family bonus.
Yes. Uh-huh. So they're coming up with creative ways to make that mechanic better, which I think is
Hmm.
cool. And
Yeah.
you can be creative and mix and match with it. Franklin
Hmm.
Estevez has a quick question we kind of talked about already, although we got more of my thoughts on it than your thoughts, which was just thoughts on Mythic Titan loot. So feel free to add your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. I was happy with it, to be honest. I mean, it's the thing where it could always be better. But what I was looking at is when you only have so much time and there's so many events, my thought process is the juice worth the squeeze, for example? Is it worth the time investment? And to see that there was an alliance top 1 to 10, but the other ones were just top 1%. So I'm like, all right, I can probably do top 1% pretty easily. Um, so I liked that there wasn't the incentive to be like, oh, I'm going to push for spot number 4 or something, because that's a little bit too intense for me. Um, but it was basically like double tournament loot. If you got top 1% on both highest overall hit and on highest total damage, then it's like you got top 1% for the tournament twice. But I think you actually get 2 chances at a 4-star ascension item. It's only a 2% chance, but I think you get I think you get 2 chances for each top 1%. Because yeah, I think I got 4 ascension items. So I felt like the loot was great actually, and that was the reason why I changed my mind and did participate. And our alliance we're like top 400, 500 ish depending. So we're comfortable in that spot, and we managed to get top 1,000. I think top 100 wasn't going to happen, but we got top 1,000, and so got some extra emblems and stuff. So I like the increased drop rate of emblems. It makes it's kind of a way to level up your heroes in lieu of having the ascension items that they don't seem to be willing to change the drop rate of.
Yeah. All right. So taking a break from Mythic Titans for a moment. Big Birdie, thank you so much. Big Birdie
Yes.
asks, save gems for season 4 or keep pulling season 3? I think you know the season 4 heroes better than I do. I haven't researched them a whole
Yeah.
lot yet.
So something I've seen that is a little bit of a toxic trait of Small Giant is they love, and I don't know if they're doing this on purpose, so I don't want to try to pretend I know more than I do, but there is definitely a pattern of very OP heroes entering beta that then get nerfed to much more reasonable levels. Like if you thought Teleria was bad in her first state, the first form they released in beta was like absurdly high. And same thing with Jean Francois. And so currently with the season 4 heroes, their stats are like just absurd. Like over 800 attack with like 770 on defense, like things that you just don't ever see for a 480 5-star hero. So I don't think that's going to stay. I don't know why they do that, if it's actually helpful for them to work down from there or if they want to create some buzz around it. I don't really know. Um, I don't think it's a bad idea to save for season 4, and I'm doing that to an extent. But the downside of that is it's kind of like waiting to get a new phone because you're like, oh, they're gonna release a newer one in a year. If I just wait a year, then I can have even the newest one, And it's like, well, then you're not enjoying what's happening in the moment. You're constantly just waiting for the next best thing to come out. So I think you have to be careful there. I think that way of playing the game would quickly become not fun and would feel like a chore when you're constantly feeling like you have to be playing in the future.
Mhm.
So I always recommend pulling for costumes if you're going to do pulls. I don't recommend anyone do pulls if they don't want to do pulls. I recommend pulling for costumes if you're going to do pulls, and then season 3 is also strong. Season 4 will undoubtedly be strong, and they're adding new abilities. But like when the season 3 heroes came out in beta, the realm bonuses were so ridiculously overpowered, and now they're pretty reasonable, and some of them are just not even good at all. So the season 4 heroes are looking amazing now, but I have to believe they're going to come down to a much more reasonable level and won't be quite the absurd step up from all the other heroes that they currently are.
Yeah. I'm going to answer a couple quick questions in the chat
Yeah,
about
go for it.
Mythic Titans to round off our Mythic Titan discussion. And
Okay.
I think that that question that we just answered is leading really well into our next topic about
Yeah.
power creep. But I'm just going to round out the Mythic Titan discussion real quick. So Joe Pace asks, um, how necessary is it now having duplicates of certain heroes, in your opinion, for the Mythic Titan? My response to that is actually pretty similar to just having duplicates in general, because Mythic Titans aren't the only thing, right? You have them for war and raid and all that too.
Hmm.
This is a personal opinion. I don't know how good this opinion is today, but this has been a long time opinion of mine in Empires and Puzzles. But especially when we were in a time where there weren't so many heroes. But my belief has been you can never have too much of a good thing. So if there is a fantastic hero in this game and you have multiples of it, why wouldn't you want multiples of the best hero in the game? Now, that's a
Yeah.
very general statement because there are some heroes, and we can use Teleria as an example, where like her shining role was tank, but you don't need more tanks. So that's an area where it's not so relevant. But like if you have, especially the defense down heroes and things like that, having multiples for war is fantastic. Now, for Mythic Titans specifically, I think it really depends on what the hero is doing. Why would I need multiple Athenas for the Mythic Titan once her effect happens once? I
Yeah.
don't really need to do it again. Um, so it kind of depends. But for I think that's more relevant for wars where you need to use heroes over and over rather than Mythic Titans.
Yeah.
I think with a Titan in general and the Mythic Titans, you're looking for synergy among different heroes whose specials stack in a way that you do maximum damage.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can add to that, I think the Mythic Titans are rare enough that I would not advise leveling a second Mickey, for example, just for Mythic Titans. I use Mickey at 370 and I got top 1% on both categories, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so, and then I just used the yellow Titan team. I might have used the green Titan team, you know? So you really don't need to do that. I think Small Giant would love that because if you're doing that, it means you're chasing more Ascension items and more heroes. But I don't think you need to do that.
Yeah.
Even if they introduced a top 100 category of like the top 100 hits and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't try for it. The top 1% results are the top 1% loot is good enough for me. So I don't think you need multiple heroes to do that.
Yeah.
The only time I advise multiple heroes is for, like you said, for war teams and stuff where you're like, would I want to use this hero multiple times in multiple war attacks? And for some of them, it's a definite yes, like multiple costume regards or something like that, for example. Um, but yeah, I when I get rid of duplicates, which I have fed a lot away, I start with the worst ones first. So I still keep duplicates of good heroes.
Yep, same. One more question about Mythic Titans is a real super quick one, and then we'll move on.
Sure.
W. Palarone asks, NittanyLionRoar, did you keep Mickey on all of your Mythic hits? I have some videos out, so if you want to watch those, you can. But I did not use Mickey the whole time. I thought I was going to, but I did reach a point where Mickey's already slow, and the big mana hit just it felt to me like he was becoming unusable, even with hurricanes and tornadoes. Like I was having to
Yeah.
use a lot of those to even um, get Mickey charged up. So I switched, and I still don't know if that was right, but I switched to Ranveer.
Hmm.
But that he was causing me to miss so much, in addition to the minions, that I was like, maybe I want super slow Mickey. I don't know. I'm still thinking
Hmm.
about that one, so I'm not settled on that yet. All
Hmm.
right, guys, we're gonna switch topics here. But if you haven't already, if you're enjoying content like this, let us know by giving the video a like, subscribing to both our channels, because we are going to host the Watchtower sometimes on my channel and sometimes on Mr. Spock's channel. So in the rush to get the stream set up today because of the technical difficulties, I didn't put those links in the description yet, but I will. So if you're watching this later, those will be in there. For today, you can just go to our channels and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss another Watchtower, and we'd appreciate it a lot.
Indeed, yeah. So what we wanted to talk about next was the idea of power creep. And the reason why I suggested this topic for today is because it's been a part of the conversation. God, you might know that better than me. When's the first time you recall that coming up? Because if season were you playing before season two came out?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay, so I guess maybe when season two heroes came out and they were better than season one heroes, were people talking about power creep, or was that with the events that were happening? Curious if you can remember when you first recall that.
I have to say, I think power creep has always been a very intentional decision by Small Giant Games.
Hmm.
And I think it's an informed decision on their part as a business because
Hmm.
other games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, like this is not an uncommon thing for a game like this. And I think they built it in. Also, having learned lessons from other games like Yu-Gi-Oh, which I haven't played, but I have heard people say the power creep in that was out of control and
Mm.
almost or has ruined the game. So I think Small Giant Games took note of some other games where that was relevant and has tried to keep power creep relevant. Like they want it to be a thing, but they also don't want it to invalidate their previous heroes. So they want it to be there, but they want it to be small steps. I
Yeah.
think because power creep has always been a part of this game, even before season two,
Hmm.
because in the very beginnings of this game, you had season one heroes and heroes of the month, and that was really it. I guess there
Mm.
were Easter heroes too, right at the beginning,
Hmm.
but it was like the most powerful heroes in the game were the heroes of the month because
Hmm.
Ares was like the tank way back in the day. And it was
Yeah.
like if you had Ares, you were the best defense in the game, and he was a hero of the month. So you were chasing heroes of the month. That's where the power creep was.
Hmm.
Season one heroes were nice if you got legendary ones, but it was really the heroes of the month you were going after. Um,
Hmm.
but then they started adding in because everybody finished season one and it was just season one and heroes of the month, and it was starting to get boring. That's why season two came along. So
Hmm.
now there's so many events, and that's another thing is the events that were coming out is where you would see a little bit of power creep. They would start
Hmm.
adding in heroes to that and stuff. But so it's always been a part of the game. I think it's always been their plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you need that to an extent because like when I've been seeing a lot of this talk on the forum lately, there's a Nerf Frig thread or maybe a bunch of them, and there's a lot of this debate happening in there, and it just kind of has made me reflect on it more recently and has clarified some of my thoughts around it. Because those arguments seem to be they tend to be emanating from people who are projecting into the future or trying to extrapolate what's going to happen with the game. So I think there's some frustration around getting heroes that you think are good at any point in time and then seeing that another one comes out that's better than them. And you're like, oh, well, that kind of devalues my product a little bit. So I think there's some frustration there. And then I think there's also people that are like just getting 5-star heroes from TC20 and are like, how come I can't compete at the top? Why can't I get to number one on the leaderboard? Um, and so it brings up an interesting argument because it shows how much diversity there is among the player base of people who have literally never spent 1 cent on the game and people who have honestly probably spent over $50,000, if not more. I don't know what the top player is, but in that sense. But that's a huge, huge spectrum. So it's just an interesting conversation because, like people asking, what's the best hero? Who should I level for blue? There's not one answer. And so that's where I thought it would be interesting for us to just kind of share our thoughts around it because there is no one right answer. So, from your perspective, do you feel like it's something that they are still managing well? If we're talking about only heroes that exist in the game now, because again, heroes in beta aren't a good reference point because they're not in the game yet. But do you feel like they're managing that well now, or what do you think about how they've handled the improvement of heroes over time?
That's a great question because I think it's really easy for Small Giant Games to go the way of other games where they let power creep get out of control. I think it's a
Hmm.
tightrope walk. It's and
Yeah.
they can easily stumble. Like I think, we just experienced that here in 2020 with some of the nerfs and things like that. It's
Hmm.
really easy to look at a hero special and not realize the effect it's actually going to have on the game until everybody's complaining about it.
Hmm.
How well do I think they're doing? I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I have to be I, I have to be honest. My only other reference point for actually experiencing power creep would be Magic the Gathering, which is a card game I've played in person, not online,
Hmm.
until the pandemic and you weren't allowed to. And for about a year or a year and a half previous to the pandemic, the power creep in that game was so bad that it was like every time they would come out with a new set, people would chase the best cards and then they would ban them from the game altogether. Like not even a nerf
Mm.
because it's a paper game, so they would just have to
Yeah.
ban the whole card, not change the card. And that felt really bad. So I don't think that Small Giant Games is doing worse than Magic the Gathering, who I've also heard Yu-Gi-Oh did worse than Magic the Gathering. So I think that Small Giant Games is doing okay. And I do think that there's a lot of um, probably over exaggerated animosity when things like that happen. I wouldn't say that people shouldn't be unhappy. Of course, there's going to be uh, frustration, and I've said this before. When there's nerfs, that's got to be the last option on the table, right? There should be beta testing. There should be creation of other heroes that help to nullify one that's too strong rather than nerfing first. Nerfing is just like the emergency button, like, whoa, we screwed up, hit the nerf button. So it
Yeah.
should be rare. I do think they probably stumbled a bit this year and had. Uh, I don't know if they were too quick to hit the nerf button or not. I still question that.
Yeah.
But um, I think they're okay, not perfect. I
Yeah.
think that they did a little worse this year than they had in previous years. But that's just
Yeah.
kind of my thought.
Well, that's a really interesting thing that you just touched on because, like you said, I think people tend to get really upset really quickly. Like you pointed out, there's a lot of animosity around these things when they happen. But an interesting counterpoint, I'm always trying to consider as many perspectives as I can. And a really interesting counterpoint to that, to those people getting really upset or just being like power creep's real, it's ruined the game, I'm out of here, is Heroes of the Month. They're moving the opposite direction.
Hmm.
I really feel like, and I think that's because they screwed up with Telluria. I think it's one, they have so much data about their game and they know that it's not that hard to get a Hero of the Month, even if you're not spending that much. So they don't want those, they don't want super attainable heroes. Well, I guess super is an exaggeration, but they don't want very attainable heroes to be incredibly strong. And we have seen what happens when that does happen with Telluria and Vela. And that definitely made the game a lot less fun, even for someone like myself who has definitely spent money on the game. So that's an interesting thing to the whole power creep argument is like some heroes are moving in the opposite direction, you know? Like Hell was she the first hero of the month ever? And she's still super relevant and I use her all the time, you know? Or like Zelene, I still see on top defenses to this day. But then you have like Zulog or some of these other Nor, some of these other new heroes of the month that people are like, I don't even want to touch them, you know?
Hmm.
So it's an interesting thing. And part of that may be that I guess you could say power creep is not rampant, but they are reserving it or, sequestering sequestering it behind a paywall or something, where like a lot of people feel that some of the ninjas are too strong. And it's like, well, those are much harder to get than heroes of the month. But it's just an interesting counterpoint that some heroes are actually moving in the opposite direction. So it's not just this runaway train where everything is going that way. No one's in the office managing it. It's all the AI has gone out of control and is creating new heroes. It's
Yeah.
not anything like that. But yeah, I just wanted to add that part in there.
Interesting point too, because I in my reviews of the previous two heroes of the month,
Uh-huh.
graded them. I mean, I put Bertilla at like average grade, but I was
Mm-hmm.
really hard on what's his name? Um,
Zulog.
No, the one before December. Um, I have his
Uh,
face in my head, the red guy with the white hair or whatever.
oh man, why
Hold
can't I
on.
remember that?
I know, right? He's that forgettable. Oh my gosh, I'll pull it up because I got like six of him.
Oh,
Um,
Ruben.
yeah, Ruben. I was
Ruben.
really hard on them, and I think most people agreed that they're not the greatest. I mean, some people are excited about Bertilla, and that's why I rated her average. I think she has some uses.
Yeah.
But I gave Ruben a D, and
Hmm.
some people were like, "What? Like that's way too hard." But I think that's because we're used to in Empires and Puzzles grades of C or higher for all the heroes.
Hmm.
I have to say about my personal grading system, I think it should be the gamut of A to F. And I'm
Hmm.
even thinking there's very few select heroes that might be S tier. But like
Hmm.
I grade A to F, and like I'd give Kagan an F. Like
Yeah.
I as a 5-star hero, factoring in their rarity with that grade as well. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that based on how I've been grading the heroes of the month, you're right. They are taking a step back for that reason because of how common they are, and
Yeah.
I think they are trying to find that middle ground where Bertilla's a little bit better than Ruben, I think, and we might see that in Heroes of the Month coming up. They want them to kind of be in that BC range, where if you get it, it's special and usable, but it has certain use cases, not necessarily just like this is no question a hero you're going to use all the time in the space that it's meant to be used.
Yeah. I know they kind of feel like 4.5 star heroes where you're like,
Hmm.
you're calling it a 5 star, but when I compare this to other current 5 stars, I'm feeling like they're a little bit lacking. Um, yeah, so I'm just trying to think where to dive back into power creep. Is there anything that comes up for you when you hear that term, especially discussed recently, aside from the things that we've covered already? Or do you have any strong feelings
Well, I'll
about the
be
rest of
interested
that?
to see what season 4 actually brings us after all
Yeah,
the beta testing and things. I have to say, I'm feeling a little exhausted with um summoning, like just to think about a whole new season 4 coming out
yeah,
soon where season 3 might, I don't know, like all the previous year, like one day I will be so exhausted where I'm like I just can't do this anymore. Like
yeah,
maybe I'll just play casually and not summon any more heroes. I'm
yeah.
still enjoying it though right now too, and I've told people before I have a monthly budget that's relatively significant because I'm an
Hmm.
adult who's lucky to have a job where I have a disposable income where I can decide what I want to do with that certain amount that I've budgeted,
Sure.
which I do not go over. But
Hmm.
like I'm still spending it primarily on this game.
Hmm.
And if you watch my channel, you'll see that I sometimes stream or play other games as well. Those are not nearly as expensive as this one, so I can throw in other games at times too.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm still summoning because I'd like to get some more powerful heroes. I feel
yeah,
like I haven't been that lucky with the newest heroes. My core is event heroes and heroes of the month. So season 3, like okay, Lady Loki and Lord Loki. I will not take those for granted. I have those. Those are awesome heroes.
yeah.
And I guess I have tier 2, which I'm happy about.
Hmm.
So I won't take those for granted. But otherwise, the core of my roster is mostly not even season 2. It's mostly just heroes of the month and event heroes.
Yeah. So if one perspective that I've been refining lately as I've been exposed to these different arguments, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it, are that I think there are some people that expect season one heroes to stay permanently relevant. And I even hesitate to speak against that because I think if they are all 5 star heroes, you'd think that they would maintain a certain relevance. And some of them definitely do, but there seems to be a perspective that those heroes should be just as competitive as the rest of the heroes in the game. And I can see why people would have that perspective, but I kind of feel like where they're like, oh, I can't even use these heroes anymore. These other ones are too strong, and it's like I think the game is 100% playable with season one heroes, but you probably can't be in a top 100 alliance or
Hmm.
in a top or rating to number one. It's just not a reasonable expectation. Sort of like, I guess it feels similar to the analogy of if you're an amateur boxer, you probably can't beat Mike Tyson or some of these other once top. I guess maybe he's not a great example. I don't know who a current great boxer is, but There in every area there are always some things that are better, and not everyone can compete at those extreme levels, you know. So I'm curious what you think about that. If you disagree, if you agree, if it feels, if you have another point to add to that. That's just kind of where I've been at lately with this discussion, is like, well, you can play the game with those heroes, but you can't expect them to always be relevant to the newest best heroes.
Right. Part of me wishes a free to play player that has chosen to just grind this game out to the max would be able to reach the top tier as a
Mm-hmm.
reward for their effort.
Mm-hmm.
But I get, I get why it's structured the way it is. They have to make money, and they're going to do that by rewarding those people who spend the money. Um, you know what I wish
Hmm.
for? Okay, it's going to seem like I'm taking a big tangent. I'll come back. But
Go for it.
okay, my next big summons is probably going to be the costume chamber event because I've been waiting for Marjana's costume and some others. And I just really like the costumes because they seem to help make those season one heroes relevant again,
Yeah.
and help to push people into the top tier who have them. However, that is another money spending event. So that's still not helping the free to play player. Um,
Yeah.
so I like where they're going with the costume event, but you know what I really wish the costume event was? And I think
Hmm.
this would make the game super fun and it would provide a path to free to play players. Is I wish costumes were like literal costumes, like hats and gloves and chest armor and things like that,
Mm.
so that you can mix and match them and put them on your season one heroes, and that they would come with their own little specials. Like maybe the hat comes with a new type of special that's added to the hero or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So, and you would decide which heroes you want to put that on. So you could kind of like load up one or spread them out among a few and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a really fun thing to do. And I think that would help to make season one heroes relevant. And I wish that there was like the costume event would allow free to play players to I guess get coins or whatever, towards some of these pieces of armor or costume things that they could dress up. Like they could be anything from common pieces of armor that you get to like legendary ones, So
Mm-hmm.
um like everybody has the ability to build up their season 1 heroes at least a little bit, even if you're getting some more common or uncommon or something like that kind of things. I think that would
Yeah.
be cool. It's very customizable and fun to do something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
like that idea. I feel like the more the increased emblem drops have helped in a sense, because that does just allow you to just do core stat bumps on those heroes. Um, so that has been one thing. But yeah, that's an interesting idea of another approach, and it honestly one that they might have considered throughout figuring out, how to best approach that, and like how do we monetize this, and like all those like boardroom decisions where they're trying to figure out what's the best approach for, the players, but also the company itself.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good time if you guys have any questions related to um, power creep, throw those in the chat box here. I think this is a hesitate to say divisive issue, but definitely one that people have a lot more strong feelings on,
Hmm.
um, sort of like politics, because it does feel like this. I think people feel if they don't do something about it or speak up, then it has the potential to ruin this game they feel good about. Kind of like politics, people feel like if the wrong person wins, it's going to ruin the country. Um, so I think there's a lot of thoughts out there. So I'm very curious to hear if people want to hear us touch on anything in particular, or if they have any thoughts they want us to respond to, because this is one of those very prominent issues, I guess you could say.
All right, so we're getting some comments in here. Let me read through them real quick.
Sure. And then after this, our next segment is probably the one I'm most excited about to talk about with you.
So not a question particular to power creep, but what
Mm-hmm.
should I ascend first, Ruben or Santa Claus?
Classic question. Um, and this is where I'll give my best answer as I would in the comments of my videos, which is that there's not one of those that's just better. It depends on what you need. I think Ruben has an advantage because he's fast and there's a lot of dot damage out there, so his effect is relevant. Santa's probably more powerful, but that slow speed can make it really hard to compete against any of the top tier teams because they're just so fast. So it really depends on where you're at in the game, what your roster is like, what kind of emblems you have available. But I think Ruben is probably like a safer bet in a way, but Santa has his merits too. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think about that because I struggle to answer these questions every time I get them because you can't just say, oh yeah, Ruben or like Santa. And if someone's giving you an answer like that, you should probably be a little bit suspicious because it's just
Yeah.
a tough question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the easiest way for me to answer this question is what I personally would do and explain my situation so that you can understand why I would make that decision,
Okay.
understanding that I'm in a different situation than other people.
Yeah.
And I can tell you why I would make a different decision too. So the decision I would make is Santa for my roster right now because first of all the special is devastating when it goes off,
Mm-hmm.
and very fast wars and tournaments are now a thing where I think having even a slow hero like that is becoming better when you can get that special to go off quickly. I mean, that's a devastating special when it goes off very fast. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be useful for that. But that's where I really need to up my game. I already have a lot of fast and very fast heroes. I don't really benefit much from so fast heroes.
Yeah.
I need to build up. That's where my game is weakest. That's why I would choose Santa for me
Yeah.
personally. I have also dogged on Ruben, saying that the special is not great, but why I would choose Ruben over Santa is if I don't have a lot of 5-star heroes, and also I need to speed up my game a little bit because he is faster. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
like a newer player or a mid game player, maybe my red roster is not super strong. There is a benefit to him just being a fast hero that deals damage that's
Mm-hmm.
legendary, especially if you're going up against a lot of 4-star heroes in this game and things. Um,
Yeah.
I have to step away for a moment. I'm going to allow you to keep answering some of these questions that are popping in.
Sure.
I'll be back in just 2 minutes.
No worries. Yeah. So the thing I was going to add to his answer there was with regard to Ruben, since he is fast speed, if you had like a costume Bold Tusk, for example, and I say the costume version because of the mana boost, you only need a level 5 mana troop with an average speed costume to make them functionally fast, which means that they are going to charge in 9 tiles instead of 10. Since you're making matches of 3, typically 9 tiles is 3 matches, same as a fast hero. So if you can give that attack boost to Ruben, his damage is suddenly better, and it does give you some protection at least from um, any of these prominent dot heroes that we do see around damage over turn heroes. Okay. And yeah, that's to speak to his answer to that question. If you were, like he's giving his answer as an end game player. If you were, if you're wondering about your first 5-star hero or your first red 5-star hero, I think Santa would be more of a gamble because you'd be probably using him all the time, and that slow speed, you would definitely feel it. Um, all right, let's see what else we got here. Mr. Spock dressed like a bad police artist sketch. I like that. Okay. A once a year option to buy the hero of choice for a number of gems would be cool. Yeah, a lot of games. I don't know if anyone else has played Rocket League, but Rocket League used to also be a loot crate game where you would get these crates from playing, and then you would buy the keys, and you would have a random chance at each crate is like its own pack, like kind of like its own summon portal, and you would have a certain chance at what was in there. And they were one of the first games that I heard that had banned that loot crate model, and instead you get what you get, and then you can choose to buy. They call I forget how it works. They call them blueprints, but basically you know what you have already, and you can choose whether to unlock it or not. So it's like if you did summons, or they would just give you heroes randomly, and you're like, cool, I got, you know, costume Marjana, for example, and you could be like, I want to have her in my roster, so I will pay to unlock her once you have her. So yeah, um, someone mentioned a once a year option to buy heroes for a certain number of gems, and I was thinking how I think the industry might move that way as they continue to ban loot crates. I think for good reason in a lot
Hmm.
of countries, because it's not classified as gambling and it's 100% gambling.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, sort of off topic there, but that was one that I saw that was more interesting. Someone said that I dressed like a bad police artist sketch, and I thought that was funny.
Hmm.
Okay. So yeah, any looking for power creep related questions? Any chance? So someone asked, is there any chance that they're trying to soften an obvious power creep by giving away a huge amount of emblems just to balance? So I don't think emblems inherently balance because you could put emblems on those super strong power creeping heroes, so that can destabilize just as much. I don't feel like I understand what the basis of that move was in their overall strategy, but I do like it. Like I just got 100 emblems today from my tournament rewards, and I feel like I think 50 used to be the max or 30 was the max, something like that. So that's a huge step up. So my emblems are just surging like everyone else's, and I kind of enjoy that because I'm like, oh, cool, I can max that many more heroes, even though I don't have
Right.
ascension items to max new heroes.
I think the purpose of the emblems was it was definitely something they inserted into the game around the time one of the times that I started to feel like the game became stale, because if you were a top player in the top 100 in a top tier alliance at the time, there was a ceiling that everybody was hitting, and
Yeah,
there was no real way to distinguish your own roster and other top alliances rosters at that point, because everybody had all the top heroes and they were all maxed out and there was nowhere to go up from there. And you would
yeah,
think that that would allow strategy to shine, except that everybody was getting pretty good at strategy too. So like
hmm,
what happened was every factor became equalized in the game except luck. And then when it became very luck based, that was not fun.
hmm,
Um, because it's a coin flip, you start, and
yeah,
if you have all the same heroes as your opponent, and it kind of just depended on what that starting board was and if you could manipulate it, and anyone in the top alliances could. And so
yeah,
yeah, at that point, and then it was stale. So once they started introducing emblems and things like that, it created a higher ceiling now that created more diversity. But what we've got to recognize is that's only going to last so long. There's a point at which all the full six war teams are going to have emblems on it.
hmm,
Another thing I liked too was you could make 4-star heroes stronger than some 5-star heroes with emblems, so that was nice.
hmm, yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you're saying that by them adding emblems, you can now, like, if you're going against all plus 20 defenses, you sort of need some emblems if you want to have a reasonable shot at competing against that team. And so now that they've added emblems, you can potentially have multiple heroes of the same class that are maxed on emblems, and it gives you a little bit more room to say, oh, I'm actually going to bring two barbarians on this team when I normally wouldn't because I have the emblems to justify it at this point in the game. Is that
Hmm.
what you were saying?
Yeah, and just like the game was at a point where you didn't really have much room to go up. Everybody was already up. It was just hitting a
Hmm.
point. So emblems, all they do is they raise the ceiling and just make people play longer and work longer. But there's gonna be a point at
Yeah,
which that runs out too, right? So
yeah. And I'm always worried what new features they're going to add next because a lot of games I've enjoyed have gone by the wayside when they've brought in features that they need to keep adding. So it's kind of like the sequel to a movie franchise you really enjoy. Sometimes the sequels you're like, oh my god, I get that they needed more content for the movie, but I hate where they went with this, and now it's tainted my experience of that. Um, but yeah, I feel like this segues pretty well into our final topic, which is the debate on luck versus skill, which I think is a debate probably even older, not a debate, but a concept that's even older than the one of power creep, especially in this game because it is a match three based game and those have been around for a while. So there's a lot of opinions on what it takes to play that game. you've obviously done videos talking about this, using your background to add value to that conversation. And I wanted to bring this up, especially with our viewers, and to see what kind of questions we get around this. Because to give my own background first, I feel like I am at my strategic peak right now, where I've always felt like it's played an important role in the game, but I feel like I'm just seeing more opportunities for that lately and realizing how much of an impact that can have. And I think if you're not looking at those things, you're like, oh, crappy boards, or like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it's easy to justify why that was the only outcome that was possible. But if you're not seeing the other chances there, then you're just going to think that there's no room for it. So I've just have had really strong feelings lately about seeing how much opportunity there is for creativity in your strategy and how that can increase your odds. And I think if you're not aware of those things, you might not even believe in it. So I'm curious if you feel similarly about your own strategy, or if you feel like you've already been there for a while in terms of where you would expect to be or would hope to be, and just to get your thoughts around what I've introduced so far.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so many thoughts about this one. I mean, first of all, my first what I'll put out there first, my belief about how this game works is it seems to be relatively equal parts luck and skill, and you just have to recognize that at the outset. And depending on what heroes and mechanics this game puts out, it tips the balance a little bit more towards luck or towards skill in
Hmm.
what we're able to do. And I think a lot of the 2020 nerf stuff that happened was because the scale got tipped a little more in balance of luck, where it was just like you start out and it's like, well, whatever, and
Hmm.
that's why a lot of people were leaving the game and they had to like hit the emergency button and stop. But since they've done that, I feel like they've put a lot of things into this game that's tipping it back towards skill. So what we do have to recognize to start out with is that's how this game is structured. There's luck in this game and it's present, right? And so, at any given point, everybody has to deal with that luck versus skill scale too, right? There's not any point in this game where somebody's luckier than another person. All the odds are the same for everybody and things like that too. So what you have to do in this game is recognize where the luck is and realize you have no control over that. Like, there is nothing you can do about the luck part of this game. That is completely out of your control. What you do
Hmm.
have control over is the skill part of this game, like which tiles you're matching, which heroes you're putting together for synergy, uh,
Hmm.
which and when battle items to use, which battle items you're going to create, which maps you're going to farm for which particular resources. Like, those are the things you have control over. So a lot of
Yeah.
managing the luck versus skill in this game is just about understanding odds. So, for players who really want to dive into luck versus skill, I would recommend studying statistics and biases and things like that that help you understand where your own brain is tricking you into thinking certain things, like
Hmm.
about superstitions and stuff like that. And also understanding how statistics works, because if you understand how statistics and odds work and you have a bad board, let's say, you can understand when you're looking at that bad board, okay, first of all, there's a lot of luck here. There's just going to be some things I can't do anything about. However, I know if I make this certain match, I'm going to have a 1/5 chance of getting the color I need where I need it to be. And that's better than the like 1/30th chance I have over here of trying to get a diamond, right? So,
Yes.
sometimes it's about playing the odds, knowing that, like, well, you're probably going to be more unlucky than lucky because 1/5 is not four
Yeah.
fifths of not getting that. However, if you go with the best odds more often, then you're going to do better over time.
And that's a phrase you've used in the past that I really liked, which is playing the odds, because I feel like that's where that's the best way of saying it, which is like, okay, what can you control? I kind of feel like the main two areas you can control, I guess three, but two are kind of related. And I'm thinking about war because that's a big part of the game, and where you have to use your whole roster. So, like when I raid, I pretty much use the same team 95% of the time because it's just a really good team. But war, you have to get more creative, and so I think where you have control and where the skill part comes in is in what team you choose to attack and what team composition you choose to attack that team with. And this is where I've really kind of gone off the deep end lately of thinking about these things as I'm attacking, of like, okay, I want to bring Proteus, but this team has a lot of snipers. So there's a high chance that he just gets killed right from the start and I don't get to use him as part of my strategy. So that's not a smart choice to make. However, if I have a Tellurian tank with, Freya on the flank and then maybe Gravemaker or something, like none of those are dealing, those are the heroes that are going to charge first, and none of them are dealing high single target damage. So as long as I have at least one cleanser and healer, there's a great chance I'll be able to use this hero as part of my strategy. And those are things that I think if you're not thinking about it, you're not thinking about it. And so you don't realize there's an opportunity there if you don't see it. And so that's one thing that I've been doing. So like my recent war videos, this is something I've been doing a lot is sharing my team selection and why I chose these teams and, seeing what one team I have left and choosing a target based on that team instead of the highest points or instead of something like that. Um, so I think that's one great place to understand hero specials or be like, oh, I'm going against Vela, but I'm out of cleansers. Well, if I bring standard Kirill, his attack boost can counter her attack down, and that can give me a big advantage. So there's a lot of room for being clever in your team selection and using your roster well. And that's something to think about when you're leveling heroes as well. Is like which of these heroes is going to add the most benefit to my roster. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And the other area which you've talked about a lot and which is playing the odds is how you move the board. There's always, I think, going to be a best match you can make based on like, okay, if I make this yellow match, I need purples and greens. Well, I have a chance of getting a purple and a green match or one or the other if I make this move versus ones that will do nothing. So that happened in one of my matches where in my last war video, there were, I think, matches 2 and 3. I was like, oh, I'm dead. There's no way I can win these. And I won, and I was like, what the heck just happened? And there's a few moves where I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this move for this reason. And if I do this and this works out, then this will happen. And that will allow me to do this. And then it worked, and it will work sometimes. And you're like, okay, that there was some luck there, but I allowed that luck to happen by playing the odds. So I think it's like you said, there's always going to be luck, and that's why people think it's only luck because you can never remove that part of it. But there's a lot of room for really clever play in there. So yeah, what
Absolutely.
what kind of ways do you incorporate those things in your own playing, or
I
do you
think you
think
described
more
it.
about boards or teams?
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. It's a mix of everything. Every decision you make when you have a decision point has a better or worse options, right? So
Hmm.
anytime you build a team, put two heroes together, make a tile match, um, and all of that, it's a decision where there's a better decision than not. And where the game is fun is when it's not super clear what the right decision is, but that there is a right decision you can get to. So like
Yeah,
that's where you see the best players in the world being more successful, repeatedly doing well in tournaments or repeatedly getting undefeated wars and one shots like you have. You had a really nice streak going, and that
yeah,
doesn't happen by accident. That's the proof that it's not entirely luck, is that the people who can consistently have success, they're not getting better boards than everyone else. They're finding those areas on the margin where there's better decisions to be made than others, knowing that you might make that decision and luck just screws you. But more often than not, by making the better decision over time, you're going to get the better outcome. So it really is all
hmm
about that. And I have to say that at this time in history of empires and puzzles, I think that they've done a really good job at making this the most strategic time of the entire game. And like I said, it's a balancing act, so I think they've gone back and forth. But I just love some of the new heroes they've come out with over the last, I would say, year or so, minus the mistake that they had to nerf. But even with the 3-star heroes and the 4-star heroes, you've now got more decisions to make. Like
yeah,
maybe I want to level up a 4-star hero and put emblems on it instead of using this 5-star hero, because it has better synergy in my war attacks. Like, for example, I have Kunshin and I have Costume Rigard. And I have chosen to put emblems on Costume Rigard and use him over Kunshin in my attack teams in war because First of all, he's a faster speed and he does multiple things and stuff like that. So there's
Hmm.
decisions like that to be made too, which I love. It's another thing with emblems that's really cool. There's even 3-star heroes that you can throw some emblems on and top tier players will use and stuff like costume gunner, and
Yeah.
so that's really cool. And so if you the more you're able to pick out those areas on the margin where you're giving yourself better odds, the more successful you're going to be in this game. One last
Hmm.
note on that for me personally is
Yeah.
that um, I understand that as something that's true of this game. And I think that there was a point in this game where I probably had reached my peak strategy. I probably felt that like a year ago or maybe a year and a half ago, where I felt
Hmm.
like I knew pretty much everything about the game and just had every decision kind of like memorized and what I should do. But
Hmm.
like I said, over the last year, they've added so many new decision points that I think that, and this is a very good thing, the ceiling for good decisions is much higher than I'm able to reach at this moment. And
Hmm.
evidence of that is in like my war chat. Oh man, I'll make a decision and then some people will be like, what the heck are you doing? Like, did you even
Yeah.
consider this other thing? And I'm
Yeah.
like, nope, nope, sure didn't,
Yeah.
but that's a good thing because that means that, you know, e- even in the top alliances for players who have paid a lot of money or whatever,
Hmm.
the decision tree and the ceiling is so high that strategy is really really important. And I
Yeah.
think that at this moment, it's about as good as it has been in Small Giant Games history of Empires and Puzzles.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been enjoying the game. I've kind of had um, I guess just an increase lately in how much I've been enjoying things because I've started to see more of those opportunities or to think more. Like there's been a few times where I've crafted a team and I've been ready to attack and I've been like, no, this is not the right team. Like I don't feel good about this attack and have either chosen a new target or chosen a new team to attack with. And I think it's easy just to be like, oh, what the hell, you know? But that's an indication that you're not playing the best odds. You're just choosing to go ahead with it for some reason, kind of like having the board, having an off color diamond and being like, oh, I'm just going to use the diamond, you know? And it's like, okay, you can play that way, and that's totally fine. And there's nothing wrong with playing that way. But there are more strategic ways to play. I still get comments on my videos, which just make me laugh at this point, which are like, dude, just shut up and play, you know? And I'm like, well, you should probably go somewhere else because what I enjoy about the game is the strategy and thinking about those things. So that's what makes it fun to me is to be like, all right, I do have more control over this than it may appear. And I want to flex that as much as I can because one, I'm just a strategic minded person. So it is fun for me to do that. But it just goes to show that there's very different styles of play, and so those people when they watch my videos are like, okay, I can't handle this. It's too much
Oh yeah,
thought
Mr.
process.
Spock, my number one piece of advice to everyone who's on here today, uh, when playing in wars and raids where there's not like a timer like there would be with a Titan, is slow down. Just slow
Yes,
down and look at the board. I
yeah,
think I play pretty slowly and deliberately already, and even so when I go back and watch my videos, I'm like I'm playing too fast.
yeah,
Like I need to slow down and see more of the board.
yeah,
And I think that like even people who wouldn't necessarily think of themselves as great strategists will find their game improve a ton by just taking a breath between every match and looking at everything and
yeah,
thinking things through a little bit. I mean, I hit that 5 minute countdown timer a lot in war because I'm
yeah,
doing that. And I do get accused of playing too slowly too sometimes, but
and that's
a lot
okay.
of, yeah, a lot of people will, I guarantee you, you will improve if you just play a little slower. So those of
Yeah.
you who are on this live stream right now, the benefit to this information we're sharing you with you is some of these tips. That would be my biggest one today.
Yeah, and I can go back to my earliest videos of doing those legendary challenge events with 4-star heroes and playing the same way, being like, okay, and maybe it emerged from there. I don't really know. I've always been sort of that mindset, anyways. But being like, okay, this hero is about to die. But if I make this move, it will combo into blue, and then I can heal, and then, and like thinking about it that way. And if you string together those smart choices, you can increase your success. But yeah, even with that, going all the way back to sort of the beginning of me playing the game in a way, I still have caught myself at times going too fast, and it's like filling my raid chest, for example. I just always play faster than I do for war because I'm like, all right, if I miss one, whatever, I can just use a tournament attack to fill up the chest or something, because there's only so much time. But there have been times where I'm like, I've noticed periods of my Empires and Puzzles career, if you will, where I have been playing faster, and I think I'm at my sort of strategic peak now where I will like the board comes in and I'll just stare at it for like, I don't know, 10 to 30 seconds. And you'll see things often where you're like, oh, if I make this, that will actually combo into an on color diamond. And if you can find a move like that, your chance, especially if it's a diamond or something, and you can make that in 3 moves, your chances of winning skyrocket at that point.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to miss those things if you just jump in and start playing. So I've been making that point with alliance members as well. As they're like, oh, my war attacks have gone really bad, or things like that. And I'm like, well, there, take your time, because I have seen firsthand how much value there is in that, of just you don't have, even though the board is very simple and there's a lot of simple elements of the game, you don't have time to take it all in if you're only spending 3 seconds on it.
Yep.
You'll see a few things, but you simply cannot see everything that's there. And if you
Yeah.
want proof, try it. And you will find moves where you're like, oh my God, there is a diamond here. Or like, this is a much better move, because if I make this move, there's 2 chances that a tile I need will come in. So like, I'm almost at 50% chance that what I need is going to happen.
Right.
And sometimes one hero special is the difference between winning and losing, and that one hero special can be the difference of one match or not one match. And if you can take a 20% chance and make it a 40% chance, well, you've just doubled your chances of success in that moment. So there's yeah, it's exciting to me. That's, I mean, you can tell I can't stop talking about it, but it's really exciting to me how much room there is for that in such a simple game. There is depth to it. And that's
Yeah.
where it's distinctly different than like Candy Crush, for example, where it doesn't matter where on the board you make your moves. In this game, you're like, okay, this one tile is going to miss, so that's going to count for 2 when it goes. 2 tiles might kill this person because it's a strong color. So like, there's so much, because positionally it matters where the matches are. There's so much more strategy than any other match 3 game that I know about, aside from ones that are basically this game in a different form.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Um, Daryl says, yes, recording your attacks helps you catch those mistakes. So he was giving advice in the chat to people about that. I highly recommend that. In fact, that was another reason I started making videos for YouTube. I wanted to show other people how to do things, but I also wanted to like force myself to have a way to watch my own attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know on my own where if I had to just like play it and then watch it, I wasn't really holding myself accountable. But when I was putting it online, I was holding myself more accountable to, okay, slow down, make the good matches, and then going back and
Yeah.
watching it and also hearing in the comments suggestions that other people had, because of course I'm going to miss stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny. You mentioned about slowing down and how you can see a couple moves ahead. I'd recommend that to everyone in the chat here today too. Some of you probably already do this, but for those of you, I think it's for those of you who don't do this already, I think it's really easy to look at the opening board or just at any point in the match and be looking for the next match. When really, when you slow down, you're not necessarily looking for the next match first. You're looking for maybe 3 moves out, sometimes 4 moves out even, but a lot of times I'm looking 3 moves out and then I go back to 2 and then I go back to 1, which is my next move. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's so easy to be like, okay, look at the board. I don't see a diamond, so I'm just gonna make this random match. And I
Yeah.
probably do that most of the time, even though I'm telling people to slow down and look ahead. Most of the time I think my brain still goes to looking for the next match when really it's, a good approach would be 3, 2, 1. What would happen 3 turns out if I make this match, 2 turns out, and so on. I even
Yeah.
had a moment in a recent war where this was funny. I don't know if anybody else caught this, but there was a moment in the war where I was in the middle of making the match, like I was sliding the tile over and went, "Oh no, I missed a diamond." because like at the point where I started sliding it was too late. But I was saying it
Yeah.
while I was sliding it and messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I still get those comments in the chat too. Are like, oh, if you had moved, this blue tile over to here, then you would have had this diamond there. So there's always going to be stuff you miss, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're trying to like narrate while you're playing, it does occupy some of your attention. So there is difficulty in recording your war hits, just in that you do miss things. So I think if you're looking for a resource for how to improve this in your own gameplay, definitely check out both of our weekly war videos or war streams, because this is something that I think we think a lot about. And I think from other content creators that I've watched, I think we are the two that dive into this subject the most. So if you're someone who is looking for as much strategy as you can, and that's what you enjoy about the game, definitely watch both of our videos and subscribe to our channels, because this, I can confidently say, is the best place to get that information. And especially the war videos, because that's something that I've really been diving into much more recently. So, and then you can see in the comments people pointing out moves that even we have missed in the moment, and so it's just a good place to learn better strategy. So, if
Mhm.
that feels like too much for you and you don't enjoy it, then by all means play the game in the way that it's fun for you, because that is the most important thing, is to enjoy yourself. Um, so, depending on how you feel about it, those are some potential resources for improving that, because I think it is something that you can learn by watching. And that's kind of what I gravitated to at first as well. Was I liked watching other people's war videos, because I needed some of that strategy modeled for me, where I could think, oh, that was really clever. Like, and I still pick up things. One thing I saw the other day, someone posted a video online somewhere of rating one of those really, top Frigg Odin Black Knight defenses, and watched him pause for a second. And then he had Finley and Cobalt charged. And, so this is an example that's relevant to those heroes specifically, but this is where you have to look for the examples outside of that. Just the example in itself can show you where there is opportunity for strategy. But he had both of them charged, and he chose to use Cobalt first, even though Finley would have placed defense down, because Odin's realm bonus gives everyone a buff. So he used Cobalt first to lower Odin's health. The whole team got buffed. Then he used Finley, and Finley hit everyone on the team. So I was like, oh, that
Yeah.
was clever. I didn't think about the realm bonuses. So while that is a Finley specific reference, it just goes to show that you can always look deeper at these things and make smarter moves. And I think a lot about stuff like that. And I was like, I'm gonna remember that one, because that was clever.
That is super clever. Man, I wish I had
Yeah.
Finley to do that. I wish I had Cobalt. Oh man. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of good heroes these days.
Yeah. So we're nearing the end. I think we typically aim for about 90 minutes. We're a little bit over that. If anyone has any burning questions, I'd be happy to answer a few more of those right before we finish. While those come in, is there anything else you wanted to throw on these topics we talked about, or anything that you wanted to add at this point in the conversation? I've really enjoyed this, so I'm glad we got to do this again. Oh, that was for you. That was a question for you.
Oh, for me?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
uh, I don't have any burning things to talk about. I think I was looking for the chat to see if anybody had any burning questions. That's what
Oh, sure, yeah.
but yeah, I have nothing else to add. I think this was good. I'm having a lot of fun doing this.
Hmm.
We'll look to do the next two on Mr. Spock's channel. So again, you'll want to make sure that you're subscribed to him, so that you catch when we do this again. And we'll go back and forth. But we had to do this today because of some technical difficulties. But I enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it a lot. And we will definitely catch you around. I'm not
I
seeing
see
any
one.
burning questions unless you
I see
caught one.
one more that I find sort of interesting, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So someone asked, do you also watch UCLA Pack's videos? So as I started making my own videos, I don't watch a ton of other people's videos anymore. And that's nothing against the quality of it. It's just, we've talked about time and how there's only time for so many things. But they've asked, what do you think about her war teams? In my opinion, she's using really passive teams, and she does very good. So there's this interesting resurgence that I'm seeing now of, like, so the long time debate has been mono or 3-2. and people are tend to be in one camp or the other. I know that I am, but I'm seeing an interesting resurgence of like 2-1-1-1 teams. So like near rainbow, and they have the potential to work. So I've looked into this a little bit, and I'm probably going to make a video about what I think about this or why I think it works, because I want to present that information because it's been sort of an interesting bubble that's forming that people are having success with. So typically it's using like three or more healers. And I think one really common team like this is with around Scotty against minion teams. And it's like just put a bunch of healers with her. She can do all the work with those stacks. Just keep her alive and keep your team alive. Um, so yeah, I do think that there is, and you know, the Avengers is a top 10 alliance pretty consistently. So I do think it's interesting that there is a new, and she's not the, you know, originator of that. There's, I don't know where that came from, but it's something that I've been seeing around. But it's just sort of interesting when new things like that pop up that seem to have success, because it's like, oh, that's something to think about. Um, so I might do a video about that soon. But yeah, I have noticed some people doing that more and more, and it is interesting, because then it's like there's no wasted matches on the board. Everything you're doing is getting you closer to charging, but your tile damage is weak, you know, so there's an interesting trade-off there.
Mm-hmm.
um do you use 3-2 always?
I generally default to that if I can.
Same.
It's not a hard and fast rule,
Uh-huh.
but at this moment in time, I'm using 3-2 mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I have a pretty uh, I have a pretty set formula for how I put together war teams in the synergy I'm looking for. Just
Mm-hmm.
the best types of synergy, and it's really straightforward and is as old as the game is defense down plus attack boost plus some high damage tile slash special damage dealers is
Yeah.
generally what I go for first. You will see in my streams it's not like always hard and fast that I do that,
Mm-hmm.
but generally what I'm going for. But as you're talking about that, I think that there might be some value in just keeping your team alive longer, because one effect of the emblems that we had talked about is it makes the defenses like super super strong, right? So most
Mm-hmm.
of your attack teams in war at this moment in time are going to have a hard time against these defenses unless you can keep them alive. So they might be a little more passive. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
particularly passive player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more, and it sort of has to do with the heroes I've gotten over time. But
Mm-hmm.
I tend to have like a faster roster and favor defeating the defense before it can really even go off. But
Same.
that is harder in this day and age when the war teams I'm facing are completely emblemed out with like level 30 troops.
Yeah.
There's definitely no tile damage that is going to kill those heroes anyway.
Yeah.
So you rely on your specials, and in that case, like a 2-1-1-1 deal might be better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where our alliance, as we've lost people and added more people, we tend to try to replace people at the skill level that we lost, because I don't have an interest in trying to climb as high as we can, because I think fighting 14 star Titans, for example, is not as fun for me. I don't have the strongest Titan teams. So just getting one shotted right off the bat is not that fun to me. And then also like what some of those war teams in the top 100 look like, I'm like, I don't know that I want all that stress, you know. So we've been pretty comfortable sticking in our region right now, just because it seems well matched, and I can understand the, you know, as people recruit and build alliances, I can understand the desire to keep wanting to go strongest and strongest. But you know, it's pretty rough at the top, and so that's why I've avoided that for a while. And that's reflected in what you're saying too, which is like it's tough. You don't have a lot of time to do much,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
rush attack, and you got all those outbreaks on there. You're like, oh my! Like I watched your video where you just like for 20 seconds just didn't say anything, and you're like, this is ridiculous, and it
Yeah,
just looked brutal.
that
Yeah,
particular war, I got stuck right at the end with
yeah,
basically a bunch of outfreaks left and
yeah.
not a lot of great that. But that's also a war where I learned a lot. I'll tell you what, like
Hmm.
I had alliance mates who were watching that stream and gave really good advice for how to build teams to tackle outbreak in particular.
Mm.
But that's consistent with what we're saying too, right? Like sometimes, you know, the sum of the parts is a whole lot more than an individual. So like
Yeah.
my way of playing the game is not my own by any means, and it's
Hmm.
not due to any one specific other person too, but just an amalgamation of a lot of advice that I've been given over time that I like to say out loud on YouTube, to help other players and uh, get conversations started and get advice moving through the channels, and we all become better players because of that.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been good. I look forward to
Yeah.
seeing you in episode 3.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be on my channel. We'll get that fixed by then. All right. Well, thanks again, man. And I look forward to the next one.
Totally. Totally. Yep.